Welcome to Zimbabwe's television network, broadcasting from Herald House in Harare. My name is Robert Mnangagwa. Shortly, we broadcast live and exclusive from State House the daily task force briefing on this extraordinary broadcast of Diplomatic Passport. We shall be getting information on the state of the nation with regards to the coronavirus burden in Zimbabwe and around our provinces, specifically if there's any news breaking from there. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on our nation, and a task force has been put together to respond to it. Today is the first day we broadcast an update with the chair, Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, at the helm of the team. After the broadcast, we will revert to our daily updates on the Diplomatic Passport with me, your Diplomat-in-Chief, Robert Mnangagwa, and live and trustworthy updates coming from around the nation and the rest of the globe from a number of our correspondents that are going to be there. As we see now these images live from Chancellor Avenue, State House, where we are due to be getting our daily update, the first for this week. In the run-up, of course, around the weekend, we got information that we had a new man at the helm of that task force, Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, coming in to lead that task force. But today, it seems the President is going to be giving us an update, after which, of course, we're going to be getting these daily updates, presumably from State House, where we're going to be hearing the state of our country, the state of our nation, in terms of our response to the coronavirus that has really wreaked havoc across our planet. Today we at least expect to hear information on how many people have been tested. Of course, more and more people are getting tested because we've received a lot more testing kits. You may remember, of course, that other kits came from that donation from billionaire businessman Jack Ma. We, on today's Diplomatic Passport, are going to be giving you some of those visuals where we went into warehouses around our capital which are carrying that consignment. There had been news, of course, to the effect on social media and other social media platforms that some of that stuff had found its way onto the black market, had been stolen and what have you. And we went to make sure that we get to the bottom of that story, because you had shown a lot of disdain at that information. You had shown a lot of shock, and we found out that, of course, that is not true. But you should stay tuned for the following Diplomatic Passport after this live update, where we're also going to then be giving you those visuals. You're going to see effectively where that material is. Of course, it's going to be deployed around the world, around the country, I beg your pardon. And indeed, we also have a schedule of where that material will be going. But as for now, we've got visuals there at State House where we expect the President to come and brief us and tell us the state of the nation with regards our coronavirus burden. We've got our man on the ground there, Takuzwa Chiambakwe. Earlier on, he had actually gone around the city. Today, as you know, is Zimbabwe's first day under lockdown that shall be rolled out for the next 21 days. And our man on the ground, Takuzwa Chiambakwe, who now is at State House, was initially going round and round our city to find out whether that lockdown had been enacted. I think we can actually give you a bit of what he saw as we await this live broadcast from State House. Let's see what Takuzwa Chiambakwe got when he went around to Copacabana to see whether there was action at one of those most busiest of ranks in the city.
Out here at Copacabana, it's usually a place full of activity, with vendors, with the taxi operators, as well as the commuter omnibus operators and money changers also filling up the space. But as you can see right now, we only got activity from people from the city council who are taking opportunity with this lockdown to clean up the space. We're also seeing that the Zupco buses are the only ones operating this afternoon. As you can see, people are taking time to get out onto the buses. So no activity happening. We've taken a couple of rounds in town. We've seen that there's a lot of compliance from people. Many people have adhered to the call by the government to say, let's stay indoors. We'll keep you updated with what's happening in other areas in Harare, but so far it seems as if people in Harare are complying with the 21-day lockdown. Back to you guys in the studio.
The evergreen Takuzwa Chahambakwe there, he had earlier on gone around the city, and as you heard from that report, there really isn't much activity happening. It seems a lot of people have heeded that call for a lockdown. And earlier on, I also took a trip around the city, came across members of the police force who were actually giving public service announcements to people, imploring them to go home. Of course, there was always that handful of people who were walking around. I would look at them and I would worry to think, are these critical service people? They really didn't look like it. And the police agreed and were telling these people to go home. There's always going to be that one or two that are going to be lingering and loitering around. But certainly on the greater bit, a lot of people here in Harare at least made sure that they heeded, stayed at home. There was a bit of a flurry of activity on Saturday and Sunday when people were trying to stock up the last bits and pieces of things that they were going to need in the 21 days. We've also got people who are making sure that we get Takuzwa Chahambakwe. We're trying to locate him there at State House so that he can perhaps, ahead of the President's address to the nation, let us know what's going on the ground and whether he's heard any new information after what we heard, of course, on Saturday and Sunday. We've been giving you updates. We had updates from Mrs. Mahomva, from the PermSec in the Ministry of Health. We also had updates from the Permanent Secretary for Information, Nick Mangwana. That was yesterday. And of course on Saturday we had those exclusive lives that we had coming from State House. So we're keeping our fingers on the pulse, and Takuzwa Chahambakwe is, as I said, our man on the ground, and he's trying to find out if indeed it's the President who's going to be addressing us first, and whether we're going to be getting word from the head of the task force. I'm sure you all know that as protocol change and this havoc that is being wreaked upon us by coronavirus got more and more defined. There was a change at the helm after the jetting into the country of the Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, and of course he was then put at the helm of that task force. And we shall be getting images again from State House to find out what's going on and indeed if they have readied, because this is indeed going to be a live update from State House, and we are keeping our men on the ground, men and women on the ground, to ensure that you get first-hand information. And of course, elsewhere you may be getting delayed information, but here we're making it a point that everywhere we've got live crossovers, so that you get information fresh as it comes off and as it is rolled out. We also have another team that's going around the rest of the city, the capital, to find out what's happening in the hotspots where a lot of work, of course, is usually done. We've got places like Mbare, that is the hub of not only the market, the fresh fruit market, but it is also a place where a lot of people get their transport outside of Harare, those long-distance buses. And we've also got a team going there to make sure that we have live crossovers and hear what's going on in that area, in that zone. Of course, just like its southern neighbor, South Africa went into lockdown on Friday, and Zimbabwe effectively going into lockdown today, this morning. Takuzwa is on standby, and I think we've finally established communication with him. Takuzwa, if you can hear me, just give me a brief overview of what has been happening today at State House, and if you have any knowledge of who's going to be addressing us and what the gist of that address is going to be all about. Takuzwa, can you hear me?
Okay, Rob,
Really?
what we've been told right now is that the president is going to be addressing the nation in the next couple of the president is going to be addressing the nation in the next couple of minutes. We just got here in time as the task force, interministerial task force was meeting, and they've just also concluded their meeting. I'll ask Teach to pan to my left here. You can see the ministers who've just completed their meeting, and very soon the president will be addressing the nation. We're not so sure as to what you'll be addressing the nation over, but we'll keep you posted. That's what's happening here at the State House.
And Takuzwa, earlier on you went into the city and you were seeing lockdown. You managed to talk to some people with regards this lockdown and how they feel. What was the general sentiment from people with regards being put on lockdown? I know people are used to their freedom. How does it feel for Zimbabweans to be on lockdown?
Well, the few people who managed to talk to early today in the morning, they were saying they find it frustrating, but you can only imagine how it's going to be like for the next 20 days. If it's only been frustrating for them for a couple of hours, one could only imagine how it's going to be. We also went into the streets, like you rightfully said. We spoke to some of the people providing services, the people from the city council who were cleaning up Copacabana. They were actually saying this is an opportune time to put up the touch-ups that are much needed at the Copacabana. When we got there, they were cleaning up, and the smell of urine was just up in the atmosphere because people have been abusing that space. As you have seen, if you've been around the capital where people have been urinating all over the spaces, you know of Zimex Mall, along Ines Therese Road there. People have also been urinating, so people from council have been saying they'll actually use this opportunity to clean up the city and to bring it up to the place where they could actually achieve world-class city status by 2030. So most people were saying it's quite frustrating, but they'll have to get used to the status quo for the next 20 days.
Very soon I'm going to ask you about this conversation that you had with the Minister of Health yesterday. But before I ask that, you talked about frustration. Perhaps you would want to tell us your first-hand experience of being frustrated. This is the first day of lockdown, and it also happens to be your birthday, your 30th birthday. How does it feel to have a birthday on lockdown, Takuzwa?
Yeah, well, it's a very awkward experience. You're used to having birthdays with everyone coming through with gifts and, you know, a whole lot of things, cakes and stuff like that. But today was a different, you know, feeling altogether, a different experience because we had to just to talk to people, having conversations online, some people calling you, but you know how expensive it is now to make calls, and people have opted to just, you know, send their messages on your social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. So it's a different experience, but the guys back at the office have made it a blast. We've been having a good time listening to some amazing reggae tunes. I want to say shout out to DJ Stavo back in the studio right there with you. Yeah, so it's different. It's totally different. You can't get the cakes because the shops are closed. You can't get the gifts because the gift shops are also closed. But I'm saying to my friends, hey, you could have done this in advance, eh?
And I would personally want to tell you that we had cake ordered and flowers ordered, but of course they couldn't be delivered because the delivery people are on lockdown. Now, on to yesterday's talk with the Minister of Health. What are some of the highlights with regard to the returnees? Because I know they're returning residents that came from South Africa. A couple of thousand, actually, if I'm not mistaken. And where are they, and what's being done to make sure that they're safe, and in the instance that anything ever happens amidst them, that anybody ever tests positive or starts getting these, you know, symptoms, that they will not pass it on to the rest of the population? What is being done to keep an eye on them?
Well, the numbers that came through yesterday from the Minister of Health as he was addressing officials at the Provincial State for Harare at Minister Chidau's office in the morning, with that 13,550 people came through from South Africa when South Africa announced that they were having a lockdown. So many Zimbabweans there also felt this was the time to actually come back home and have some, family time with their loved ones here, as they have busy schedules back in Mzansi trying to fend for their families. But as you rightfully said, the worrying factor was that these people are now have been released in the public space, and the minister said that they were actually doing some surveillance. They were monitoring these individuals. As to how they're monitoring them, we're not so sure of the details, but he said that the people from the border, they have their details, they have their addresses, so they can actually be monitoring how these people are adhering to the order to self-quarantine, to isolate, and to avoid moving around. I also think because of the coming through of the 21-day lockdown, this will also help to ensure that there's limited movement and we don't have increased cases of people, spreading the disease as they go around mingling with their loved ones and colleagues.
Do you, as of now, have any updated version with regards to the number of people who have been tested, or at least the number of people who have tested positive? We heard the last we heard of those numbers was 5 positive people who had tested positive, rather. And now, do you have anything that's updated? Are we still at 5, or could that number have risen over the weekend?
Well, numbers haven't changed yet. That's why we are here this evening. We actually want to get that updated version of the statistics. So we'll be giving you in a couple of minutes, as the Minister of Health is also standing just on the sidelines right here, right now, waiting for the President to make his address. And I'm sure from that time on, we can then get the statistics for today from all the provinces in the country.
Well, and there were also the talk around that. There's talk that went around that to the effect that there were these private hospitals that were being set up for the elite, so that those with their money can actually now start paying United States dollars and get VIP treatment, while the rest of the poor Zimbabweans are confined to basically your Wilkins, your Beatrice Road Infectious Diseases Center. And I know you took the authorities to task over that, because a lot of our viewers were complaining and saying this is the rich again pulling themselves out of the rest of us and getting preferential treatment. How far true is that according to the answer that you got? Because we really want to know that we're all in this together and that we're not being left exposed because we're the have-nots.
Well, what I can tell you is that the Minister of Health did tell us that all the centers that are being set up for coronavirus treatment are free, and anyone can come through and get tested and get treated. So it's not anything to do with being elite or on the other side. If you're poor, if you're middle class, if you're up there in the rich elite class, you can always go into the same space and get treatment. What they're simply doing, according to the Minister of Health, is increasing the number of centers that they're actually treating people. So what I can tell you on authority, based on what we heard from the Minister of Health, is that the centers are open for everyone. So whether it's Wilkins Hospital, whether it's Beatrice, whether it's in Borodale or Mount Pleasant or St. Anne's or Ekuseleni in Kobulawayo, it's going to be open for everyone and anyway. So he said those rumors, those social media rumors, are not true at all. He said that the places are open for anyone from any walk of life in Zimbabwe. All social strata are being accepted.
Of course, there's a lot more that you managed to get for us. For example, you had quite a chat with Agnes, with Mahomva, the PermSec of Health. What were the major talking points that you remember that you talked to her about, just in case some of our viewers may have missed that broadcast, which premiered here on ZTN today, but also are based on something that you talked to her about yesterday?
Well, one of the things that we were picking up from South Africa as we were talking to the Secretary for Health was that we've seen that in some spaces in South Africa's high-density areas, the lockdown has failed to really hold fort, as we've seen people saying that we live in shacks where we're living in a room full of 6 people, so we cannot stay indoors. We saw visuals from international platforms where soldiers were actually going out to tell people to go back in, but some were not adhering. So when we asked the same question to the Secretary yesterday, she actually said Zimbabweans are not stupid. Zimbabweans will adhere because they also understand that this disease is not going to be looking at whether you're living in a squashed space or you're living in a free space. It will just affect you. So she was actually highlighting the fact that Zimbabweans will adhere, and based on what we were seeing today, most people are seemingly adhering in the city center. So those were the major pickups from our conversation with the Secretary of Health yesterday.
Thank you, Taku. We're going to continue this conversation, but I thought I should just rope in some of our viewers out there watching from all over the world. Togozi Sidube, Yvonne Mai Gabi, Nduna Mafutlana Tapiwa, and also some of the comments. We've got Marsh Munamupa saying, City of Harare needs to finish construction of all other market stalls, revamp the old. After 21 days, people should go back to a clean and orderly marketplace. It also says it should not be business as usual after lockdown for combis and vendors. And I'm sure he's pretty much talking about the state of affairs in the city. It was absolutely dirty, and perhaps this is the time that some of these authorities should be taking to make sure that the absence of people in those spaces means they can revamp them, clean up, rebuild certain spaces. Of course, even the road network in the city, there were a number of places that needed to be fixed, especially in the central business district. Perhaps this could be the perfect time that authorities could take and make sure that they fix the roads. Takuzwa, perhaps this would be a question to ask, because some people want clarification with regards stories that came out to the effect that the Makambas were asked for 120,000 United States dollars, for example, for the late Zororo to get assistance. And of course, these are questions you are posing to us, and questions that we indeed shall take to all the right places, because a diplomatic passport, we use our diplomatic passport to get to all those hidden places and ask those questions, those asking, prying questions, because we want to leave nothing to speculation. We want to leave nothing to fake news. And indeed, we shall be taking that question of how accurate the 120,000 US dollars story is, and if so, who asked for it, from whom, and how was the modality, how were the modalities around that. Keep asking your questions, of course, on our platforms, on ZTN, on Facebook, and we shall continue taking note of your questions and contributions and taking them to the places where they ought to go. Coming back to you, Takudzwa, we've heard that these 5 who have tested positive, and as at ZTN we broke the story today that they're actually not even at Wilkins or any state institution, but they're actually at home and being observed from home. Do you have any more information with regards to these 5? And if so, how are we absolutely sure that they are safe in the communities, because they've been put back to the communities? Are they self-quarantining? Are they in a quarantine situation where they are not in contact with other people? How do we know that this is the correct way to handle their story, their issue.
Well, I am not a health expert, but what we've been picking from other countries as well, especially Europe and the United States of America, is that most patients, well, I cannot say, let's not say most, but some of the patients that have confirmed that they've been, that have the virus are actually at home. So it's not rare, but it's something that we've seen, that if you've got mild symptoms like what the Minister of Health was telling us, you could actually be at home and it's okay. Right now, the president is coming out, so we're just going to start taking you through to the president, who's just going to come through in a moment. So that's what I can tell you, that indeed the patients are still at home, but the Minister of Health said that they've got mild, in a mild state. It's not too serious, and their GPs are actually assisting them from their homes. So that's the update. We've seen that from other stories in other countries. Some people have actually gotten healed, and as long as it's not too critical, they can do well at home.
Okay, as we see elbow bumps, we are used to fist bumps, but now we're getting what we probably would term elbow bumps from the two vice presidents, Kembo Dugish Moadi and Constantino Guver Chiwenga. They are leading that task force, which should be giving us an update today. There is a flurry of activity. We are set to, of course, start getting audio there to hear what's going on as we get the Minister of Health just walking past our camera there, Obadiah Moyo. And of course, we need you wherever you are, and we know you've got questions that you need asked. We've got our man on the ground there, Takuzwa, a fearless 30-year-old now, 30 today. He's going to be asking questions, whatever you want answered. Keep those questions coming through, because we're going to be asking those questions wherever they're directed to. We are getting activity from State House there, where we are going to be hearing the first update of the week from the task force, the coronavirus task force. And we would like to welcome you, if you're joining us right now here on Diplomatic Passport on Zim Papers Television Network. Welcome to this special update, the first of the week from State House, as we see members of the task force there on coronavirus who are going to be giving us an update today. We still do not know whether that keynote update is coming from one of the vice presidents, or indeed the president himself is going to be walking out of State House onto the lawn to give us today's update. Of course, there we see visuals of the president coming up to the podium, as it seems indeed the executive is going to be giving us this update. Are there plans to provide critical PPE to essential services, supermarkets, private hospitals, etc.? Shidozimune is asking. We've taken note of that question, and indeed we're going to be taking it to the rightful places. Now we hear audio as the president gives today's address, the first of the week. Let's hear what's coming through from State House.
My fellow Zimbabweans, in life, we all must face problems and challenges which are beyond our making, that have been forced upon us. Currently, COVID-19.
Are we okay on the sound side? Can we have that now, please?
Is this live?
Yes, it is
But
live.
But you're disturbing.
That's okay, sir.
My fellow Zimbabweans, in life we all must face problems and challenges which are beyond our making. Currently, COVID-19 is no longer a mere challenge in many countries around the world. It is far worse than a mere challenge, an out-of-control problem, in fact a pandemic, that is taking thousands of lives daily. I say this not to induce fear in your hearts, but that you appreciate the gravity of the situation. Thousands of lives in some of the most advanced nations in the world, from east to west, have been lost. We have an opportunity to ensure that this challenge, which currently exists, does not become insurmountable. Many countries tragically reacted too late, and today they are facing the consequences. As your president, I have chosen to tackle this challenge before it becomes a problem of insurmountable proportions. I have declared 21-day lockdown to stop the spread of this virus, which has reached our land. The lockdown began today. During these 21 days, government will work tirelessly to make sure that we are ready to face all scenarios. We must make sure that our medical teams are equipped and protected, and that our hospitals are fully prepared, that our citizens are ready. Let's be clear, food suppliers and the food stores will remain available and open. Medical supplies will remain open and available. A list of vital industries will ensure that the lights remain on and that the economist's heart continues to beat, even if it is at a much slower pace. I repeat, if you need to leave your homes to buy food and medicines, you will be able to do so. The security services will be enforcing the lockdown with a listening ear. Their job is to help, to protect, and to keep us all safe. But my Zimbabwean brothers and sisters, all this is in your hands. I know it is not easy. This 21-day lockdown is not a punishment. It cannot be avoided. It is an opportunity to save lives. We have 21 days right now to save thousands of lives. And how will we save those thousands of lives? By acting responsibly and by staying at home, by washing our hands and by keeping at least 2 meters distance from each other. Those who must work, please work responsibly, keeping your distance wherever necessary. Wear your masks and gloves. Wash your hands thoroughly. I want all of you to spend the next 21 days acting as if you already have the virus, as if you are a carrier. Would you want to infect your friends? Would you want to infect your families? Would you want to infect your countrymen? Of course not. So keep your distance, 2 meters away from each other. Don't touch your face. Again, wash your hands. Stay at home. My fellow Zimbabweans, we have been witness to the tragedy unfolding before us, nation after nation. With the virus already here in Zimbabwe, we have no time to lose. We must act now. For every day we do not act, for every day we continue our lives as normal, the virus will spread, infecting more and more of our people. This was not an easy decision to make, but this is the right decision to have made. Our economy will survive. Our economy will recover. But right now, nothing is more dear to me, nothing is more sacrosanct than the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. We can emerge from this a strong and a healthy nation. God bless you all, and God bless the nation of Zimbabwe. Thank you and good night. Ndoda kutaura kumhuri yeZimbabwe kuti donzo rataita iri kuti mazuva 21 tigare kudzimba hakusi kuti takumanikidzai kuita zvamunenge muchida mazuva ose. Taita izvi kuti tiwane mukana wokudzivirira chirwere chauya munyika muno. Patiri kutaura pano tatova nevanhu vanomwe mukati menyika yedu vava nechirwere ichi zvababatwa, umwe akatoshaya. Ava tanhatu tichinavo vari kurapika zvavo. Saka tinokumbira mhuri dzose muno muZimbabwe dzigare kumba dzisafamba. Kana ada kufamba, tinokumbira kuti fambira kuda kunotsvaka kutenga kana kunotora chikafu kana kunotenga mushonga. Kunze kwaizvozvo tinokumbira chose kuti vanhu musafamba, mugare mudzimba. Izvi zvatinenge tichiita tiri kudzivirira kuti chirwere chisapararira mukati menyika. Donzo iri nomutoro uyu uri pane umwe noumwe wedu, muduku, mukuru, mudzimai, baba, muchemberi neharahwa, makatakura mutoro uyu kuti tirarame. Chirwere ichi chakatanga kumwe, chaparara munyika dzose. Hongu chava muno muZimbabwe. Kune zvaitika kune dzimwe nyika, tatova nedzidziso yokuti tinofana kuita sei kuti chidzivirire chisati chapararira. Saka yandinovimba kuti mese kwamuri kumamisha nomumadhorobha moziva kuti donzo iri ndimakaritakura. Harisi raPresident, harisi rehurumende, nderedu tose. Tozama kubatana kuti tikunde chirwere ichi mukati menyika yedu. Murara zvakanaka. Ndatenda. Shona.
So there you have it, that exclusive live that we were having for you from State House, where the President addressed the nation, giving us an update of where we stand as a nation with regards to coronavirus. We were giving you this live broadcast with our man Takuzwa Chiambakwe on the ground. We heard that critical information that we had also asked about, because a lot of people were thinking there needs to be clarity with regards to places like supermarkets, because some supermarkets had just decided and chosen to shut down when in fact they were supposed to remain open as a public service. Pharmacies ought to remain open and should not choose to shut down, because those things are not luxuries, they're necessities. And of course, even if you go into our website on ztn.co.zw, we carried a story with regards some supermarkets which had decided to shut down, and we were calling them out and saying our people need food, our people need basics and necessities, so they ought to open up. So now we've had, as a matter of clarity from the executive, that we need to have those places open. And should you need something from the shops, should you need something from the pharmacies, you're free to go and quickly make your purchases before going back home. Of course, this is day 1 of 21. We shall continue to be giving you these updates on a daily basis. We shall continue to have them live. I'm sure you heard the President ask there for a moment, is this live? Of course it's live. It's ZTN. We will always be giving you information hot of wherever it is coming from. After this, we're going to be having the daily update. As you know, we've got diplomatic passport coming to you every day. We had to shift it a little bit because of this live special broadcast, but we shall be giving you all the packages, and we shall be speaking to the people you sent us to, the people you asked questions of, and we have these answers for today. And very soon, after this live broadcast, we shall be coming back yet again on our diplomatic passport to give you bite-sized chunks of what's happening here in Zimbabwe and the rest of the world. But for the meantime, from me, Robert Mnangagwa, good night, goodbye.